Should you get LASIK? Taylor Swift got LASIK in 2019. LeBron in 07, Kim in 09, and Tiger got it all the way back in 1999. So then it must still be the go-to option today if you want to improve your vision surgically, right? Think again. I'm going to give you 4 reasons why LASIK isn't your safest or best option, and then I'll tell you about the procedure I would actually recommend to friends and family. First things first, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Craig Moskowitz. I'm a board-certified ophthalmologist here in New York City, and I've specialized in laser vision correction for more than 18 years. I'm not here to tell you LASIK is dangerous, but it is risky. And there are some really good reasons why LASIK is getting a bad rap right now. And I want to tell people who are interested in laser vision correction that there are far safer options out there that can deliver the same benefits of LASIK without the same risks. I think there are 4 clear reasons behind the recent collapse in trust in LASIK surgery. Let's get into it. The first problem is with the procedure itself. With LASIK, a surgeon cuts and lifts a flap of tissue in the cornea prior to performing the laser vision correction. The flap, which is usually 20% of your cornea, never fuses with the rest of your eye after the cut. So from that point on, it's actually in 2 parts, not the one whole part it should be. The flap itself is the fundamental problem with LASIK and the thing that leads to complications. Cutting the flap is quite hard on the corneal nerves, the ones that tell you when to blink. The nerve damage tends to result in a lower blink rate, and dry eyes are not far behind. Now you may see LASIK advertised as bladeless or all laser, then there's SMILE, small incision lenticular extraction. Don't be fooled. At the end of the day, cutting is cutting. There is a reason why they're using semantics to draw attention away from that. LASIK has one advantage though, and that's the instant healing. Often when a LASIK patient gets up off the laser bed, at that moment, that's as sharp as their vision will ever be. But all told, 46% of patients report 1 or more visual issues after LASIK, according to a major 2009 FDA study. I think this percentage is much higher now. Remember, 2009 predates the rise of social media and streaming. The dry eye issue with LASIK is only getting worse because of all the time we spend staring at screens. Look at it this way. Imagine there was any other elective procedure in your body, and there were 2 ways of doing it. The first way entailed cutting, that changes the structural integrity of that body part forever, and has a much higher risk factor. But it offers an instant recovery. The second way entails no cutting and equal or superior results, but a 5-day functional recovery. Why would anyone choose the cut? The second problem is with the industry. Here's the thing. Even though there are better options, LASIK can be fine for many people, and there are quality LASIK surgeons out there. But the LASIK industry is actively hurting LASIK and the entire conversation around laser vision correction. LASIK is an expensive, out-of-pocket procedure, so naturally there's a big corporate interest in selling it to more and more people, even when they aren't great candidates, and despite mounting evidence that there are safer alternatives. I call this the LASIK industrial complex. Quantity, not quality, is often the main priority at LASIK mills owned by large corporations. This means a much higher risk threshold for who they are willing to operate on. It means one surgeon performing dozens of surgeries per day. It means never hearing from your surgeon again after the operation. It means patient care being routinely delegated to non-MD employees in the interest of profits. Not all LASIK clinics fit the criteria of being a LASIK mill, but considering the corporate takeover of so many LASIK clinics in the US, it can be easy to fall into the trap without even knowing it. The third problem is the government and media scrutiny. In December 2022, the FDA shocked the ophthalmology world by announcing it would consider slapping a warning label on LASIK, which is to say LASIK practices would be urged to walk patients through a checklist of potential complications prior to surgery. Even though the FDA's proposed guidelines are still under consideration, this announcement shined the media spotlight on the LASIK risks and complications and handed a megaphone to critics of LASIK. Many of these critics are well-respected doctors who have been warning patients about LASIK for many years. Less than a year after the FDA news, the FTC fined a major national LASIK chain for bait-and-switch advertising. The fine was just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the LASIK industry's aggressive marketing and sales tactics. You can see how these 2 major news stories would whip up a wave of negative sentiment and potentially turn the tide against LASIK. The fourth problem is Gen Z. This is a big one, guys. Beyond the pending FDA action, beyond the FTC fine, beyond the media scrutiny, beyond everything else, the biggest reason LASIK is losing its edge as the most popular form of laser vision correction is actually Gen Z. The vast majority of people get laser eye surgery in their 20s and early 30s. At my practice, the average patient age is about 26. So this means LASIK practices and their ad agencies are now really trying to convince Zoomers and younger millennials to get LASIK. And I think that's proving a hard sell. Gen Z grew up on the internet and social media. They don't trust traditional marketing and they don't trust corporations. Above all, they seek out and value social proof in the form of verified reviews and feedback from their peers online. Typical advertising and even word of mouth from a family member isn't going to cut it for them. They're going to do the research themselves. I think this new paradigm represents a major threat to LASIK in general, and especially to LASIK mills who tend to have bad reviews. And now, influencers who had a negative experience with LASIK are starting to jump on video and live streams to share their story in vivid detail. These videos can have a powerful persuasive effect, both negative and positive, since they get boosted by algorithms and are obviously not critically reviewed or fact-checked. That leads me to a content creator named Cody Detweiler, aka WhistlinDiesel, aka the CEO of Destruction. WhistlinDiesel has earned millions of followers and hundreds of millions of views by, let's just say, testing the durability of automobiles. What a time to be alive, right? Earlier this year, Cody published a video to YouTube titled "LASIK Surgery Ruined My Life." Needless to say, it was a major departure in subject and tone from his usual content. It racked up over 1 million views before being removed from YouTube. Now it's on Facebook, where it currently has over 2.5 million views. A colleague asked me if I thought Cody's take was fair game or fear-mongering, so I'm going to play the video and offer my thoughts. Let's check it out.
Getting LASIK eye surgery was the worst decision I have ever made, and if I could do it again, even if I could see perfectly fine, I wouldn't risk losing my eyesight for anything.
So unfortunately, LASIK regret is not a unique feeling. It's a relatively safe procedure, but there are plenty of people that are unhappy with it.
About a year ago, I was fed up with wearing contacts. I had the typical issues with contacts, just too much time putting them in and out. Sometimes dry eyes here and there. I had a -4 in one eye and a -4.5 in the other eye, which is pretty bad vision, enough to where this is blurry holding your hand out in front of you.
So this is about the average prescription for a laser vision correction procedure. Obviously, he can't do much without them, and he's getting tired of contact lenses like most people that wear contact lenses all the time. They get dryness, their eyes get red, so I can see why he's looking to get out of them.
So I asked a bunch of friends and looked up information on the internet of experiences of people who have gotten LASIK before. It was mostly positive. People saying that they got it, it was quick, painless, took about 30 minutes. They went home, went to bed, and woke up with perfectly fine vision the next morning.
So I am kind of surprised that he looked on the internet and didn't find much negative stuff on LASIK. There's plenty of it out there.
The following is a little bit graphic in description, but it is exactly what happened. They took a tool that keeps your eye open, and they basically held my eyelid back forcefully with this tool.
He's a bit sensational in the way he describes this step, part of the eye procedure. Anytime you do laser vision correction, and obviously you don't want your patients blinking, you have to put something in the eyelids to hold it open. In my 16 years of experience, it's never been traumatic to a patient to have a speculum in their eyelids to hold it open.
So after a couple of attempts, they successfully suction cup this piece on, and then they lower the machine down onto my eye and basically cut my eye open with a scalpel. So this machine goes in a circular motion and slices the front part of my cornea. They pull the machine off, they pull the mounting piece off, and then the doctor takes a scalpel, and since my eye is numb, I can't feel this, and flips over this flap.
What he's really describing here is the first step of LASIK. LASIK is a full cutting procedure. As most of us know, it's easier to cut something hard than cut something soft. They put a suction device on your cornea, and it raises the pressure of your eye and makes it easier to cut this flap. The flap is usually about 110 microns. The average corneal thickness is about 550 microns. So 20% of your cornea is cut, lifted on this hinge, and then the laser is done to reshape your cornea. It is quite invasive sometimes when they do cut the flap, and that's what he's describing here.
If something goes wrong at this moment, I permanently lose vision. I will never see again.
That again is a little sensational. No one's going to promise you're going to go blind if that step goes wrong. Ophthalmology and surgery on the eye, there's a lot of things we can do, but again, it is very risky if something did go wrong. And this is why we don't do the flap cutting. This is why there's other ways of doing it. And this is why we're making this video.
So they flip open this flap and then they move me under another portion of the machine for the LASIK procedure. I sit under there and they said stare directly at the laser. If you move your eye, the machine will stop and then you can line back up. I stare at the laser and at this moment I realize that there's no going back. So I have to just commit and get my eye finished. They turn it on. Sounds like a stove trying to start over and over and over again. Just constant shocking and zapping sounds. I could smell my eye burning under this laser. And after about 10 or 12 seconds, they turn it off, they move the machine away, and they flip the piece of my cornea back over, and then they take a small tool and press it in to make sure that it's properly sealed.
This is all unique to LASIK. LASIK does not equal all laser vision correction. These steps that he's describing in graphic detail, not all laser vision correction does this. I stopped doing the one 16 years ago that did this. You don't have to get this done if you want to get out of glasses and contact lenses. And the other thing that I'll say is, all of our patients take a Valium before they get this case done, before they get their procedure done. So he seems to be very, very, very aware of everything that's going on in this procedure. So I'm a little surprised, but this is not the routine laser vision correction experience at all.
On the next eye, pull my eyelids apart. They tried to get the plastic mounting piece to suction onto my eye. According to the doctor, it was not fitting properly, but as I understand, there are only a couple sizes of these, if not just one size. The doctor tries to lock this piece onto my eye, and it keeps popping off. So they try again and again and again. They clean the piece, they clean my eye more, they put some more drops on, and they try pressing this harder and harder every time to get this piece to lock on to my eyeball, to suction cup on. After 5 or 6 failed attempts, they push very hard on my eye.
Very painful for Cody. But like we said, the 5 or 6 suction attempts, ASA uses no suction. You don't need to get this done to get out of glasses and contact lenses. You don't need to get this done. No one's pushing hard on your eye. No one's trying to wedge a suction cup on your eye and trying to do one size fits all. This is specific to LASIK, L-A-S-I-K.
I am all done, just like that. Flawless, excellent procedure, I quote, and I walk out of there and I hope that within 24 hours I will hopefully have full vision back, not knowing that that was the last time that I would ever properly see again without any complication.
Very few ophthalmologists, if this is all true and he had to do 5 or 6 attempts at suction, is going to tell a patient you had a flawless procedure. This was far from flawless, and again, I feel very bad for Cody, but it's obvious 5 or 6 attempts to do something that left him in pain and left him unsure of his visual outcome was not a flawless procedure.
Next morning, 13 hours later, I woke up, took off the plastic mask, took off the blindfold, and then opened my eyes. And it was not 20/20 vision, it was not clear vision. The vision was actually worse than what I started with. I could make out shapes. It was quite distorted, almost double vision, and I had assumed that hopefully it would just get better as the day progressed.
The horror story continues. It's obvious he's traumatized. It's quite an unusual experience, but it happens.
I started to Google on my phone how long it takes to see again after LASIK eye surgery, and most examples I was seeing take 1 to 2 days. So by the time I hit 3 or 4 days, I started really worrying if I would get my full vision back.
Cody had an elective procedure that he probably paid plenty of money for. Anytime a doctor operates on you, whether your insurance paid for it or whether you paid for it yourself, you ought to have access to that doctor, and you shouldn't need to rely on Google or AI for any information about your post-op period. This is not a typical experience with laser vision correction at all. And it's kind of shocking and surprising, and again, I feel very bad for WhistlinDiesel.
This is the only time in my life that I've ever had a genuine, real panic attack. I sat on the chair and they looked at my eyes under a machine, like a kind of a microscope type thing, to make sure that the corneal flap was placed properly over my eye. They looked it over And after about 5 minutes of inspection, he seemed to be able to point out something, that the corneal flap wasn't quite properly back in place.
Again, the flap not being placed properly, highly unusual. But the important take-home message of this is you don't need to get the flap cut. This isn't the definitive approach to getting out of contact lenses and glasses at all, at all. And no one should ever compromise on safety. And if they know that there's other approaches to doing it besides cutting a flap, definitely do not get a flap cut.
It got to the point where I could feel my whole eyeball being just pushed into my head, just my whole eyeball being pressed into the point where it was definitely no longer round in shape. And I started to get super sweaty. I almost passed out as they're jabbing my eye with this tool. As I'm hitting the fight or flight point where I'm ready to either jump out of the chair or pass out, they say, "All right, I think we got it."
Now this video is about 16 minutes and about probably at least 3/4 of it are about talking about the problems with the suction or the flap being misplaced at the end of the procedure. You don't need to get that done. You don't need to get that done. No one needs to press on your eye and make your eye not a sphere anymore. You don't need to get that done.
It's now been 1 year since my LASIK eye procedure, and my eyesight is quite comparable to when I was using contacts, but with several drawbacks. I'm 100% reliant on sunglasses. I cannot go without sunglasses if it's a sunny day, and if I do, my eyes are in extreme pain. It'll give me a headache. I'm 100% reliant on eye drops. Every morning, I wake up 30 minutes early, and I put in eye drops, and I go back to bed until my eyes are wet enough to be able to open and close properly. And this is one of the normal complications of LASIK eye surgery that was in the waiver, but nobody talks about that.
Dry eyes, definitely much worse when you cut a flap. Informed consent should have all these potential complications and side effects in them. So I'm kind of surprised that he didn't know about it, but again, you cut a flap, you're doing the most invasive way of getting out of glasses and contact lenses, and the most invasive ways like this can have long-term issues like they unfortunately did with WhistlinDiesel.
Any procedure could have complications, but something with a 30% complication rate on the most important part of your senses should not be legal. There's been several articles of people 20 years later bumping their eye and the flap comes back open because it never properly heals. And they lose that part of their cornea forever, resulting in them being blind in that eye. There's almost a full guarantee that you will not have perfect vision after this. Would you do it? I think the answer for most people would be no. But since there's overwhelming positive evidence, it leads me to wonder if this might be biased from articles written by LASIK eye surgery companies wanting more business.
Cody chose the highest risk way of getting out of glasses and contact lenses. He really did. Patients should be fully informed when they make a decision, and he's right, the eyes are critical in someone's life, and for him to go through this and be light sensitive and have dry eyes, it's really terrible to see that. Like we said, if you have two options, okay? You have an elective surgery, you have instant recovery with a cutting procedure that permanently alters the structure of your eye, or you have one with a 5-day functional recovery that doesn't permanently alter. If people knew that they had those choices to make, I don't know how many would say, permanently alter the structure, and I want this wow factor, and I'd rather have long-term issues than a 5-day recovery. I don't think any of you would want that. Very unfortunate what happened to him. I think we can all learn from this that there are other ways, much, much safer, of getting out of glasses and contact lenses. I think LASIK is dying. By 2030, it will not be the default choice in laser vision correction. Even though there are other laser eye surgeries available, the vast majority of people in the past 20 to 25 years have picked LASIK because it's the household name. That's the power of marketing. But now, the LASIK industry has reported 2 consecutive years of fewer LASIK cases, and they're dealing with government scrutiny, media scrutiny, and blowback from content creators and online testimonials and reviews. The way Gen Z approaches shopping for laser vision correction is so different from previous generations, and I don't think LASIK can adapt. What options does that leave someone who's sick of contacts and glasses? The good news is that there is a safe, modern alternative to LASIK called Advanced Surface Ablation. ASA is a laser surgery technique that involves loosening the outer layer of the cornea, the epithelium, to allow the laser to reshape the deeper corneal levels. ASA treats the cornea in the gentlest way possible. There's no cutting, there's no flap, and this is why ASA surgery results in far fewer long-term complications than LASIK. In addition to not using a blade, ASA also doesn't require an alcohol solution. So patients typically have a shorter recovery period and less post-op discomfort compared to PRK. Bottom line, this is a much safer procedure with better long-term outcomes. The only downside is a slower recovery period compared to LASIK, but I think that's a very small price to pay to avoid the lifelong complications that can occur with LASIK and other cutting procedures. The foundation of surgery, since modern times, is built on safety. It's not built on instant recovery, it's not built on the wow factor, it's just not. The foundation of modern surgery is impacting as little healthy tissue as you possibly can and making it look just like it was before you operated, but benefiting the patient. And that's what ASA is, that's the bottom line. There is no safer way of getting out of glasses and contact lenses. If you made it this far, thank you. And if you have any questions, drop a comment or reach out through my website. See you next time.